Hi everybody! Today I want to show you how this AI vocalist tricked all of my friends, professional musicians and normies alike. So a couple of months ago, this company emailed me by the name of Dreamtronics, and they were discussing this product that they are working on, and they were talking about this vocal synthesizer that was based on AI. This software completely blew my mind. Like, I can't even convey to you how mind-blowing it was when I first started using it. And I was just like, finally, within music production, we're starting to take some of the steps forward that we're seeing within visual art. It's something I've been complaining about for a long time, that not many companies are willing to take a risk on something, and this to me really blew me out of the water. And even if you're not a musician, I want to show you sort of what you can expect to be coming to your ears in the future. And then I also want to discuss from a more philosophical standpoint of the implications of this kind of stuff happening within art. So if we want to write a vocal with this software, we need to do many different things, right? So you can see we have various notes that are indicating the pitch that I would like the vocalist to sing. And then within those notes, I have the words typed out that I would like it to say. And then down here below within the waveform, we can see exactly where what syllable is being said. So we can get a very detailed breakdown rhythmically of what's happening, so that we can better fine-tune what's going on with our vocal. Another thing too about this software that's really cool is that it's using context awareness on what's happening before and after to calculate what's going on within the vocal performance. I will type in a vocal and it has its first pass of what it thinks is going to happen, and then it's going to do another pass to further refine and use context as to what's happening elsewhere, whether it be pitch, note length, syllable before or after, and any other parameters that I define within the note properties or globally within the arrangement. Another thing too you'll notice is that I actually have this little line moving along here between different notes. And what this is actually doing is it's telling me sort of what's happening with the pitch in a visual manner, right? If we think about how a singer vocalizes a song, or even any instrument that's not fretted or that has a fixed pitch like a piano, right, there's always going to be some unpredictability within the actual pitch of the note. And in music, we call this intonation. And we would say somebody that has really good or really great intonation tends to, on average, hover within a few cents of what the target note is that they're trying to vocalize or reproduce. So what I want to do is actually just play the vocal on its own and then sort of break down and show you some cool stuff that's going on.
Just remember, life moves on. Oh, when you're...
So you can hear that natural pitch variation and variability that's creating a more natural performance. And this is something you would not be able to do by hand by any means. So it's really doing a great job of handling sort of what I'm throwing at it. And we can even see some interesting creative choices that the software is making that I didn't even define. So the first thing you could see with these two notes here when I'm saying the word when and your, that we're actually moving from one pitch to the other in a very slow manner, rather than instantly from pitch 1 to pitch 2. And then another creative decision it's doing is actually using what we would call a grace note into the next note. So my destination pitch here is a C, but the software is actually doing a sort of grace note into the next note. So we're using a note that would technically, that I didn't really define, or that I didn't want the software to do, but it's sort of calculated on its own that, you know, this could be something that sounds good based on its training data. To me, this really just encapsulates the creative process that I would have with another human being. You know, when I'm working with a vocalist, I may be like, I don't really like how this syllable sounds, and then they try it again and give me a new take, and we end up having this collaborative process of sort of the kind of sound that I want mixed with the influences of the actual vocalist that I'm working with. And then we find like a happy medium. And we're doing the exact same thing here, but within artificial intelligence. Since I mentioned the idea of doing different takes, something really cool that we can even do within this software, Synthesizer V, is we can actually have it generate new takes for us if we don't like what it spit out to us initially. For example, this right here. Like, I'm not a fan of it and I just want to give a new take rather than tweaking within the note properties. I don't like that. Give me something a little bit different. And then it's going to go ahead and use context awareness and recalculate everything.
Feeling down.
And another great thing about having the ability to create different takes is that if I move a little bit further within the vocal, you know, I have the ability now to have doubling and have the vocal spread throughout the stereo spectrum, which if you're a producer, you'll know this is a standard way to really create a nice vocal production.
Time waits for nobody. Ooh, so don't stay stuck in the past, or life will pass you by. All you have is right.
So it just really enables us to be more creative and add different vocal layers and really mess around with things in a way that I think is pretty interesting. Even with faster vocals and syllables, it tends to really come along really well. Like obviously in some areas you can tell maybe it's a bit too perfect, but overall like our performance I think is really, really good. Minus some glitches and some things that I didn't finish writing or adjusting, like just the first sort of initial pass of what I'm writing, I think sounds pretty neat.
Love it when you're touching me. I just love it when I'm touching you, baby. Love it when you're touching me. So touch me how you like. Ooh. Love it when you're touching me. I just love it when I'm touching you, baby. Love it when you're touching me. So touch me how you like. Ooh, baby.
And what's really cool is that the software even emulates the sound of breathing in before actually belting out the next phrase. Here's a quick final example before I really get into the more philosophical discussion. I just want to show you how well this software is able to handle a much more complicated arrangement than what I showed previously.
Ooh, I cannot help myself with you. Oh, baby. I cannot help myself with you. Oh, baby, take me deeper, deep down inside. I want you deeper, deep down, alright.
I just want to show you one final thing regarding expression, and I thought it was really cool how when I started to have the software perform lower notes, that in a way almost its imperfections fit the harmonic context of what I was writing. So there's this part of the song that's the bridge, which is calling into question all the, you know, feelings talked about previously in the verse and the chorus, and I wanted to see if the vocal performance could also match that, and I think it did really, really well.
These feelings taking over me are so clouded that I can't see who you really are.
So I was really able to, in some sense, capture a performance that was much more human and sort of convey some emotions that I wanted to within my arrangement. So one thing that's really cool about this is each vocalist sort of has its own personality and way that it conveys its sort of emotions, if you want to use that word. So you kind of have a certain style and stylistic decisions that are being made sort of by the AI based on its training data, you know, much in the same way that a human would based on the input of all their influences. Hey everybody, I need to make a brief interjection. If you're enjoying this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below. And if you really want to go for that extra step of support, feel free to donate to me on Patreon because it'll make you an ultra red pill gigachad when it comes to supporting me. You know, that extra money allows me to do a lot, like investing back into my channel and just provide you better content and more interesting things, as well as to pursue a lot of the bigger goals that I would like to achieve for my channel. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and back to the video. Recently online, I've been seeing a lot of hate over artificial intelligence and its relation to art. You know, in the visual space, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening with like stable diffusion and so on. And, you know, the results of this software are really phenomenal, especially when it comes to more stylized art, you know. Some of it, if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll never have any idea that it was done by artificial intelligence. And I could see how many artists would be maybe upset or, you know, frustrated over the fact that there's artificial intelligence now filling the space of art. And some people are even making the argument that these data sets are sort of stealing from other artists, which to me, in my perspective, I feel is hilarious, and we'll get into that in a second. But a lot of people are upset, and it really frustrates me. The reason it frustrates me is because they're really kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. You know, they're not really seeing past their nose in a sense. Like, there's so many possibilities that this AI can have towards your art that you're just sort of shutting out because of an emotional reaction to something that you fear or don't understand. And especially when it comes to being online, people can get into their little bubbles and, feed into each other's anger and negativity over something without really considering the other side. Even on the more pro-artificial intelligence side, which is a little bit more where I personally align, many people can get into their little bubbles and not understand the other side either and sort of their concerns. One thing that many people are saying is like AI is going to steal work from artists and people are going to turn to AI rather than paying, an artist to do their work. But let's be honest, the reality of something like this is that an artificial intelligence is not going to really take away many jobs, in my personal opinion. And I say that because people who would rather go to an artificial intelligence to get some visual art rather than an artist are people who would probably not pay to begin with. Rather than using an AI to generate art, they would probably just steal the art that you've been working on, crop out your logo, maybe do a few edits and then post it as their own. I've seen arguments about how AI doesn't really have any value and it doesn't really, say anything. There's really no artistic merit to it. But if we really look at that on its head and kind of take it from a more free market perspective, which I know is going to piss a lot of artists off, but I kind of align more this way, is that the value of something is what we assign to it as individuals. In the same way that art is something is a complete abstract concept of the mind, money is the same way. It's just sort of a thing we have to trade different commodities and goods. In the same way with art, our personal value of something is sort of what gives it value. So some people may see AI art and not really value it because it doesn't meet some arbitrary standards that they have, but there are many people who are going to look at AI art and sort of see it as this really interesting artistic expression, and an artistic expression that had its original sort of foundation within, the human mind, and then was changed into something that was able to be computated by an artificial intelligence using a totally different perspective. And they would give that perspective its own unique, interesting value versus only sort of relying on the perspective of an individual human being, if I'm making sense here, right? And I think when you sort of blind yourself to the amazing possibilities that artificial intelligence has, I think long term, once the market settles and we find equilibrium, overall the artistic sort of expression that we will have access to within the world is going to be so much better. I think many annoying tasks and jobs in art that are really frustrating are going to be sort of automated away a little bit, and we can sort of have artists focus on other things that are more important. So for example, spending time on the marketing and advertising side, because they're not having to spend so much time in certain areas, especially when it comes to 3D art. And I think in many ways with music, as we're kind of coming into the future of that, where I can sort of have an AI give me a bunch of different chord progressions or a bunch of different melodic ideas over a chord progression, or maybe even when I'm in my workstation, I'm writing some chords, it'll detect what I've been writing and composing and suggest different chords to me to come after with what I've already written. Or maybe I can have it analyze a section of a chord melody or a harmony or something like that, and then try to come up with a new variation on it in the next part of the song. And I think if you're a working musician, this can be amazing because now you can finally sort of have a bunch of ideas thrown at you, especially when you have writer's block, and you get to have a totally different perspective of something that an AI would write. And sometimes some of those accidents that a human wouldn't necessarily do are things that I think would be very valuable as an artist and sort of as an asset. And I think you're just going to be fine. There's going to be times where you'll be like, oh, this is a job for AI. Perfect. You're going to be other times where it's like, no, I need to make this from scratch because this is the only way to approach this project. So that's a brief idea of what I kind of think about artificial intelligence. And I would love to hear what you have to think below. But anyways, let's go back to my other angle. Okay everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it interesting and maybe are sort of maybe a little bit more enlightened to all the interesting things that AI can do. And hopefully I was able to change your perspective a little bit if you were somebody that's very pessimistic in terms of the AI and the future that it's going to hold for us, and I guess you could say humanity as a whole. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.